Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard. And again, we have a jam-packed show for you. Plenty of games to cover. Some exciting news with Drysdale coming up. So we'll talk about his performance. He scored his first NHL goal along with Trevor Zegras. So we'll talk about their play and how that's kind of formed in this last week or so. More updates on trade rumors. Of course, a lot of them came out right after we recorded our last show, which tends to happen from time to time. So we'll dive into those. Plenty of players' names being thrown out there as the trade deadline comes up. Only a couple weeks away. So we will get into that. Lots of fan questions, tons of injury news, and finally some draft lottery changes that were talked about and now approved. So we'll go into those as well. So let's go into it, Eddie. We'll go into the games a little bit. We won't waste too much time as we talked about before, but when there's some big stuff going on, we'll highlight that as we start off the show. The Ducks were in a losing streak. They did come out of it and then lost again afterwards a couple times, but unfortunately, the Ducks, after dealing with the Kings, they then went and faced the San Jose Sharks for 2 games. The first game was completely horrible, and they ended up getting blown out 6-0 in that game. Second game, not as bad. They fought it out kind of during the middle of the game, and then ended up losing that one 3-1. And the Ducks have kind of continued to decline a little bit with those games, but kind of a rough go. The Ducks, again, on another losing streak, as we talked about. It's just tough. There's nothing else to say. I mean, I look at this stuff, and a lot of people are upset out there. You're messaging me. I've got friends telling me that, hey, I'm not watching the games anymore. I can't believe you still watch them. You do the podcast and everything like that. And I feel you out there, and if you're listening right now, you're probably in the same boat. You've kind of checked out. You probably just get the updates on the games from our Twitter feed and look at the stuff that we post on Facebook and some of the articles. But I'm looking at this as more as the process and how that's going to unfold. Obviously, in these 2 games, that didn't really help as the Ducks lost these 2, Eddie. But I guess my big thing about this is we can't look at wins and losses the rest of this season, because I feel like the season is lost in terms of playoffs and whatnot. Now we have to look at, will this team get something going, start playing better, get those younger guys in there, which is what we need to see as these games continue on. What's your take on these couple games with San Jose and how the Ducks are doing?
It's bad. That Sharks game was horrible, and I feel for the fans that tell you that I'm not going to watch the game. And just watch it like I do sometimes, because my life's kind of hard right now, where I can't always watch the games live because I'm usually doing something else, so I have to come back and watch them after. Just imagine coming home and I have to, knowing that the Ducks lost, ugly loses like this, I had to sit here and watch it. That's even worse, but I still do it. I still want to see them play just so I can either critique them or praise them, but what's weird too is Evander Kane is like a Duck killer. That guy just can produce against the Ducks like no problem. If Evander Kane paid his debts like he scores on the Ducks, he'd be phenomenal right now, but he can't. But I guess they played better on that second game, but they still lost 3-1 to another bottom feeder team. It's like the battle of the bottom. I don't know. I don't think they played good on both games, even though they only lost 3-1. A lot of improvement. It just doesn't seem like they have that heart. Like I said, you see it from some games. You see that passion. You see that skill. You see them make some decent plays, but it just goes to hell after that. You're just kind of like, okay, what happened to this team? And that 6-0 loss against the bottom feeder, that was just terrible. And I can't believe big shakeups weren't even made that game. But after that game, it's just bad.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 games are rough. I mean, there's not much. Not going to beat a dead horse. They just against San Jose, and you didn't play well, and you kept the losing streak going. And I guess then we got kind of a tease because they played Colorado, and that game, like we talked about, the Ducks seem to play well against certain teams in terms of their skating ability and whatnot, and one of those teams is Colorado. And they came out in the first period, and it was extremely exciting contest. I mean, Colorado scored first, and the Ducks answered back, and they kept going back and forth, and the Ducks had a 4-2 lead in the beginning of this game, and you're like, all right, this is fantastic. All kinds of craziness going on. Up-tempo game. They're playing well. They're fighting it out. They're getting some good goals in this game. And then after that, they lay an egg. I mean, they don't score. And I mean, that was it. I mean, the biggest highlight was really at the end, the first period. Derek Grant gets a penalty shot, his first penalty shot of the NHL, while the Ducks are shorthanded, mind you, and he scores his first goal of the season, which we all know Grant's been struggling. So when he got that and the Ducks were up, 4-2 at the end of the first period, I felt pretty good about this game. I really thought, okay, the Ducks got this, and they still had that lead halfway through the period in the second period, and then Colorado got a couple goals, tied it up. Then they got a couple early goals in the third and didn't look back. And I mean, man, Eddie, talk about frustration. You're starting out this game. You're looking good. You're playing Colorado, which we know is a playoff team. And you do 30 minutes well, and then you just do 30 minutes and you just blow it.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy, but when the Ducks had this strong start, I told a couple of buddies, I guarantee, or I think the Avs are going to come back and they're going to beat the Ducks. The Avs, I know how they play, and I know when they get pissed off and you piss off a few of their players, they're going to start going and they're really going to come at you. And I knew the Ducks couldn't handle that kind of pressure. They switched goaltenders. I think the Ducks kind of took advantage of Miska and his inexperience in the net right now. He's still a new goaltender. And once they switched goalies, the momentum changed. Rantanen started the comeback, started them getting going, and the Ducks just couldn't match that kind of talent, that kind of speed. You have players like Nathan McKinnon running around out there, skating as fast as he can. No one can touch him. He just creates so much opportunity for everyone around him. And when he's on the ice, you have a few Ducks players they're focused more on him because they know the damage he can do. It's not saying anything bad about the Ducks. I said I lost my confidence, or I'm siding with Colorado more because they're my second favorite team. But I spent a lot of time in Colorado watching these guys develop, watching their system and how they play, watching them how they go down. It was just it wasn't surprising, and you really can't be this upset because Colorado has been on a tear lately. Their last 6 games, they just been blowing past teams. It's just you can't really fault the Ducks for this because Colorado is such a powerhouse team. You can't go wrong with any of their players because when their top players aren't performing, as we saw before, their depth players will step up, and then when those players aren't performing, their defense will step up. There's always someone you have to worry about. So once they make that goalie change and once they got someone better between the pipes, the Ducks were in trouble, and that's how it went down. So you really can't hate the Ducks on this game or fault them losing to a team like this. Yeah, 8-4 is horrible, but Colorado has just too much firepower from everywhere not to be 8-4, and especially the way they're playing as of late.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that came up in this game that hurt the Ducks again, we've seen this now, is the penalty kill keeps going down. We saw San Jose take advantage a couple times in those 2 games, and Avalanche did here as well. They scored twice out of 3 power play attempts. Of course, the Ducks power play has been terrible. It's been way at the bottom. So special teams is just killing Anaheim. Like you said, Colorado turned it on, and the Ducks just usually don't have an answer when that happens. I thought one thing that was kind of interesting, and I noted this in the game recap talking about this one, I think the Ducks still could have pulled this out. Zegras had a really good chance to score, hit the post, and if he would have done that, the Ducks would have been up 5-2 in the middle of the second period. Not saying that would have completely changed the game, they would have won, but if you're up 5-2 as opposed to 4-2, the 2-goal lead is the worst lead in the NHL, right? They always talk about that. So I felt if that would have happened, maybe it would have changed a little bit. Yeah, the Ducks would have got a little more momentum in their way, but when they weren't able to get that lead up any further, and then Colorado started getting those goals in the second, you could totally tell the momentum shifted, Eddie, and then they just took over in the third.
Yeah, I still think the Ducks were doomed in this one. It just, I don't know. I couldn't see the Ducks competing with the Avalanche, especially with them being that. I don't know what the Avalanche coach says in the locker room to fire his guys up, but usually when they're down, especially down like this, they come out strong and they come out hitting hard, and they're going to make you pay. And if you don't have stellar goaltending, then you're kind of screwed. And that's what happened. Like I said, they have too much guys that can put the puck in the net, and too many guys that want to be that guy to bring them back. It was just one of those games where when people were all happy, my buddy was saying, "Oh, Ducks got this." I had that feeling too. I know how Colorado plays, and I think they're going to come back. I didn't think it was going to be 8-4, but I thought they were going to come back and make it interesting and maybe win by 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and they did. They turned it on. They came back. I think you're correct too. And then changing the goalie, that was a smart move on them. And the Ducks just couldn't answer. And the Ducks have, during a lot of these games, they had to roll with Miller because, as we'll talk about later, Gibson's been out and unfortunately, injured. So just a mess. And so the Ducks decide to bring up Jamie Drysdale and make that debut. And they started out poorly in this game against Arizona, but they ended up rallying. They had Drysdale getting his first goal and Zegras getting his first goal. And then the Ducks were able to rally and come back and win this one 3-2 after a poor start where they were down early. But they pulled the trigger, Eddie. I was surprised because we weren't sure. We knew Zegras was up. Drysdale, what was going to happen. Again, more injury stuff that we'll get into later. But this game at least was an exciting one with both of them and seeing them both score together, their first goals, even though Drysdale was kind of iffy. We weren't sure if he got it or if it was tipped or whatnot. But, of course, out of all the games, this was the only good game in the last week.
Oh, yeah. I want to kind of rewind a little bit about Hunter Miska. It sucks because after that, he was ended up getting sent down. The Avs made a trade, got a new goalie, but he recently deleted all his social media because he was getting a bunch of hate and slack about his play from different people. He said about 20 to 30 messages that are just people just talking crap about him, and he just said it wasn't worth it. It just brings me to I don't know. If one of these players aren't playing that well, especially someone that's new, as recent call up, only had 6 games in the NHL in net, and he's getting lit up, and I think is the hardest position to play, and these people are running their mouths for him to delete social media. I think this is ridiculous. I just want to point out that you don't have to be an asshole on social media and talk all this shit. If you really have something to say, just be a man and say it to someone's face. But running your mouth to these athletes and because you hide behind a screen, I'm sorry, but you're a little bitch if you do that. I apologize for my language. It's just things like that really frustrate me because I know the family hears it too, and I'm sure some of the Ducks players that aren't playing that well, I'm sure there's people going in their DMs and tagging them and talking crap to them. I just think that's the most pathetic, and you're a huge nothing loser if you're one of those people that sit there and do that or contribute to him having to delete his social media. Just be better and be a better person. And if you really have that problem to say with someone, go to their face and confront them. Be a man about it or a woman about it. I know plenty of women that can scrap or knock you out if you get into their face and talk crap. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And he didn't play that bad. He was just an inexperienced goalie. And the goals that were scored on him weren't really that bad of goals that he gave up. The Ducks just made some perfectly good shots. So I want to throw that out there just before we get into the Arizona time.
No, that's fine. And I mean, the Ducks players have done that too. We've seen Cam Fowler get off social media, and there's been a few other players that have done the same thing. And honestly, if I was a professional player, I wouldn't be on social media. I just wouldn't, because there's just too many people out there, especially Twitter. Twitter's like the worst place. People just love to run their mouths on Twitter, and they think it's funny. They just love it on there. I don't know why. Twitter is like a cesspool of hate. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. The other platforms aren't quite as bad, but people do that, and that's what they do. They go on there and they think it's funny, and they want to blow people up, and that's why we don't really engage in any of that behavior. I just don't think that that's a healthy way. I like to promote the Ducks and hockey, and yes, if a player does poorly, we talk about it and everything, but I'm not gonna bash them and go after them and tag them or DM them like, you're a horrible player. And that sucks that happened for him in Colorado. And it's an unfortunate part of today's society that, I didn't know that since you brought that up, Eddie, that happened.
Yeah, it just fires me up. I read that the other day. It just fired me up. Like, come on, like this poor guy. He's only 25. He's still young. I mean, for NHL age, but he's a goalie, so they come up and mature a little bit slower. But give him some slack. He's out there doing, like I said, one of the hardest positions you can in hockey, and he just had some bad games. And unfortunate for him, he can go back down, like tune up those games, and hopefully be a better goalie. It's happened before. Goalies come up at an older age and tear it up. Look at Tim Thomas. He wasn't young when he became a star and won a cup and everything like that. I don't know. That just fired me up, and I wanted to address that. Just it's not just the Avalanche players. I'm sure a lot of Ducks players are getting that. I'm sure a lot of other teams players get that. I think it's so stupid that people do that. It's just really annoying. And like you said, yeah, Twitter has a lot of people like that. I don't understand what's the logic of it. And if people feel good about sending a DM to a goalie telling me you suck or something, like what's the point of that? I don't see it. But if it makes people feel better just to be that big of a loser, then I guess that's what it takes for those losers.
Yeah, I mean that's part of our society, unfortunately. But with the Ducks, you had Drysdale come up. Finally, that's how the Ducks decided to get out of this losing streak. After as we talked about with Colorado, and they started out poorly, as I talked about, and then they came back and won this game. Like I said, a little bit of confusion on Drysdale's first goal, but he ended up finally getting credit for it. He also got an assist in this game. Zegras finally got through. He's been close so many times, and he was able to punch it in. So this was obviously the Ducks' best game and most exciting game. The first 5-6 minutes wasn't so great. Ducks turned it on in the second period and ended up winning in overtime on the power play. Adam Henrique, who, by the way, now is tied for the team lead in goals. If you remember, he was waived and then tried to be traded. So kind of interesting story there with him. But the Ducks pulled this one off. And this is what I'm talking about, watching these games. People are like, oh, why do you watch and why do you stay on this? Well, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for these young guys to come up and play. And I'm not going to lie, I watch a lot of this because of Zegras and Drysdale and the way that they handle themselves. And I like what I see, especially when they're on the ice together in the power play. I think they do extremely, extremely well. I like what I'm seeing from both of them, Eddie.
Yeah, this is the first time you can kind of see an identity getting formed in Anaheim. And the identity is behind Drysdale and Zegras. You can see how these two players are special and how the Ducks should start building the team around this whole youth movement around them. They're fun to watch. They want the puck more. They want to create opportunities. Drysdale, I said, probably needed another year before he can be NHL ready to be called up. I was wrong. He looks ready already. He looks like he belongs there. He looks how he's walking the line right there, creating opportunities, head up the whole time, not afraid to throw the puck on net. It was fun to see. It was a great debut, and something even better after the game, but I think it was a great game overall. The Ducks were down. They rallied back, and Zegras finally gets his first goal. Beautiful little toe drag, and it finally gets it. Hopefully that monkey's off his back, and he starts finding the score sheet more, which he has. Not with goals, but he's getting there. He's still his first year. It was really fun to watch. It was one of those games where you're watching in misery all the other games, them losing, them dropping games, but you have a game like this, and you're like, yes, you get fired up. Like, this is why I watch. And I'm glad I got to watch this one kind of live. So that was, well, not live. I got to watch it live at my house, but not live. But this would have been a game to be fun to see in person. I think this would be a game where you're not really mad about spending $20 on a beer. It'd been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on in this. You had Getzlaf getting his 700th assist. Miller getting his 390th win to pass Hasek on that all-time win list. So some good stuff there. Some NHL firsts, obviously. And I really liked what I saw with Drysdale. Like we were talking about, being NHL ready. I think he is. Looking at his positioning defensively, he's almost always in the right spot. I like how he's able to transition the puck out of the zone and get it going the other way. He seems pretty calm under pressure. And, overall, I just like what I see from him. I might start a debate here, but I think he's more NHL ready than Zegras at this point. And that's nothing against Zegras. I think Zegras can hang too. I just think in the overall two-way game that Drysdale brings, it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, and we're actually missing one of our best, or we are missing our best defenseman in Lindholm. So he fills that void. Like I said, he played great. I loved it. I love how you said he's calm. He seemed like he was calm. At times, seeing him play, I didn't even know it was Drysdale because he just looked like a vet out there at some times. But it was a really good. It was fun to watch these guys. It was even better to see them get their first goals together. And the picture that was taken of both of them is just priceless. That's going to be a picture shared for many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we were talking about, the future of the team, right? And so, you felt good after this game, and you're like, okay, cool, and then they play Arizona again, and yeah, not so much. They just get down early in this one, and you thought, okay, well, they're down by 2 again early. Everything will be fine. We can, come back against Arizona again. Oh, wait, there's a power play goal at the end of the first period. Now they're down by 3. And they're just like, damn, man. And then they add another one, and they're down 4. And it's just like, oh, my God. This just was horrible. They just got off to a bad start. Again, against Arizona, they couldn't recover. Henrique got another goal, which was good. Like we said, he's tied with Comtois now in the team lead. Probably the only bright spot of the game. But a little frustrating that, oh, man, you thought that they were going to have a good chance at maybe taking 2 in this one, especially after the last game, and build some momentum. But not so much, Eddie.
Yeah, you know what? And I don't know if... I think all the games that I cover the recap on are all the games that the Ducks lose. It's like it's a trend. It's a trend that's I don't like. I can't recall a recap I wrote where the Ducks won. I mean, they only had 9 wins, so I mean, it's not really. I'm getting an opportunity, but still, it's like, is it me? But then when I don't write them, they lose too, so I really don't feel bad. But yeah, it just one of those games. It sucked because the Coyotes were on a really bad losing streak too, and the Ducks should have took advantage of that. They came back that first game and beat them to extend their losing streak, the Coyotes' losing streak, but the Ducks just didn't take advantage of it, and they made this team look way better than they were. It's just, that's what pissed me off the most. Zegras gets an assist in that game, so it extended his point streak, so that was good to see. I talked about earlier wanting him to get in the score sheet more, but it's just one of those games where I wrote on my recap too, because I usually throw my constructive criticism at them, but I just turned it away and did some more positive things. They played decent in the third, and they had probably one of the best power play possessions I've seen in a while, if not in the entire season. They didn't score, but they gassed the Arizona penalty kill out, and they looked great doing it. And I thought a goal was going to come, and unfortunately it didn't. But at least you see something going on with Zegras and Drysdale. Something like we can hope to see in more of the future, and hopefully those points keep coming for Zegras, and he just gets used to getting on the score sheet as much as he can.
Yeah, like I talked about, when you see both of them on the power play, I'm almost like, you know what, man, just give one of them the puck and just let them do their thing. I mean,
oh yeah, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're doing great. They're able to get some more possession in there, get some solid passes, create some chances and whatnot. So that's the other part that I like to watch, is when they do get a power play and things happen with them. Now, kind of interesting thing happened. The Ducks then played the Wild. They ended up losing 2-1. We saw Manson come back. Remember, he's been like in and out with injuries and whatnot. The dreaded 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup returned, which I completely hate unless you're using the 7th defenseman to play forward on the 4th line, which the Ducks don't do. So I don't know why they're using this. I really irritated me, and you could tell the Ducks ended up getting gassed towards the end of the game here. A big thing that you and I always harp on is chemistry. You talk about plus minus, you talk about all these advanced stats and puck possession and all that stuff, but it's really hard when you have 11 forwards and you don't have the line set up. You're constantly having to move some things around and whatnot. 7 defensemen's not really a big deal because you're resting one, and you're kind of rotating some of the pairings. It's not as much as a disturbance or disruption into their play. But with the forward thing, I don't like that when you don't have 12. And it seemed to kind of bite this team in the end, because I did the recap on this one. I really just focused towards the end of the game. I was really not happy with Akins and what he did, because we talked about the power play and how well Zegras and Drysdale looked in those last 2 games against Arizona, and then here you got a power play with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left to go in the game, and they're not out there. And on top of that, you could tell the guys looked a little worn out. You have a timeout, you don't use the timeout. So, that kind of bugged me, because I thought the Ducks played a decent game for the most part. You had Terry with a great goal early on. Yeah, the Ducks, got behind early in the third, but I thought overall this was one of the most even games that they played, going back and forth. The shots were pretty even, the face-offs were even, the chances and whatnot. But I can't stand that lineup. And the other thing was that Comtois got benched in this game. He's your tied leading scorer at this point with Henrique. Yeah, he made a couple of mistakes in the game before. He didn't get to play as much in that game. I totally get that move by Akins. Okay, he did some bonehead things. You didn't play him as much in the game. Fine. But then, again, he benches him here the next game. Kind of like a Henrique situation. When he had a poor game against St. Louis and then was benched the second one. You see that here with him. And I'm just not a fan of that. I mean, I think Comtois should have played in this game. If you're bringing back Manson, roll with the sixth defenseman. And if you have to limit his minutes a little bit, then you limit his minutes a little bit. Or guess what? Don't play him. Bring him back in another game. I mean, you have Drysdale up here now. Lean on him. I don't know. This one just, of all the games, I mean, the Colorado game really bugged me, but this one bugged me, especially towards the end, Eddie.
Oh, I hate the Wild, so this pissed me off even more. But you know what? Can we talk about how Troy Terry's backhand tuck? That was a beautiful, beautiful goal he scored. I loved it. But yeah, like you said too, questionable decisions made at the end, and who knows if they would have called that timeout, if they would have put the hungrier players out there that could have created something, but they didn't. It just goes to question Akins' coaching ability now, and we've been defending him a lot on the podcast this season, but things like that, it's really hard to justify the actions of that. And this whole 11 forward, 7 defense feeling, it doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't know why teams do it sometimes. It just annoys me. And if you're gonna do that, why don't you try one of those D guys on forward? It's not gonna hurt. Trust me, it's not gonna hurt the Ducks' chances of scoring any goals because they haven't really been doing that much this season. I think the last defenseman they tried that out on was Holzer. I don't know if it was last season or the season before when they had him on that fourth line for one game. But it's just, I don't know why Max was scratched that game. If it was not feeling well, or it just doesn't make any sense to do that. You have a taxi squad too you can call up and bring players and have them participate and play. It just 11 forward, 7D does not make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, and it seemed like it bit the team, in the end there. But Akins had some things he could have done to try to minimize that and fix it. And then, like I said, Ducks may not have gotten the tying score there, but man, give your players a rest. Put out your two teenage kids that have been playing pretty well since they've been up with the Ducks. So Ducks end up dropping that one, and I mean, that's it. I mean, you can't really, like I said, I don't watch this team and I don't care about wins or losses. And I know that's extremely difficult for a lot of people. I talked to some of my other friends about this, and we're in the same boat, in the same agreement. We're trying to look at what's going on as far as the process and the lineups and everything. And then, of course, this game makes me mad because I don't like the lineup and I don't like the coaching decisions. So that added to it. So that's the other part of it. That's getting a little bit frustrating here is when you're not utilizing your lineup of players in the best manner. So hopefully that doesn't happen the rest of the season, but we've seen some questionable decisions, and it's just been frustrating. So that kind of leads to go ahead, Eddie. Yeah,
I was gonna say too. I don't know if it was me yesterday or not, but I think this game was probably one of the most boring Ducks games I've seen all season too. But I still think the Ducks should have won this game. But it was just, I don't know if you got that feel from it, from both teams too. Both teams didn't seem to have that energy to play yesterday. The game just seemed like it was just kind of dragging on, and I was glancing down at my phone a lot. And I know when I'm glancing down at my phone a lot during a game, it's probably usually either I'm bored or the game was boring. But I don't know what you thought about that, Mike. If it's just me thinking the game was like that, or if this game was boring to you as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, this was one of the ones that I agree with you. I felt with Zegras playing, the games have been more exciting, more energy. Drysdale too as well, but this one definitely was a little bit of a sleeper, unfortunately. Until the end. The end, when the Ducks got that power play and all that, and then I just got frustrated. I was just like, really? I was just pissed off at that point. But so that leads to really our next segment on the show, which we talked about last time, was trade rumors. A bunch of stuff came up. We've got fan questions, of course, about Akins and Murray as well, because people are just fed up, and I don't blame you at all. So we'll go with a little bit of an update from Murray about the team here. Pierre LeBrun had an article in The Athletic where he talked to Murray, pull a couple quotes from it and things that he talked about. And I think this is kind of interesting, and then we'll kind of go into some updates. We talked about Raquel and some players that could be traded, but there was obviously more stuff that came out in the last week. But with the trade deadline coming up here in a couple weeks, I personally thought before that maybe the Ducks would do a lot of stuff because all these rumors keep coming out. Some of them, Eddie and I have said, are completely BS, where others, you want to kind of monitor and see if more is going to come out or what's going on. But from this last article, I don't know really what's going to happen at this trade deadline. I don't think as much is going to happen because some of the things that Murray talked about as far as trading is he says that it can't just be all for draft picks. I got to start getting some younger prospects, end quote. So that's one thing he's talking about. Sounds like he's trying to transition the team into a more ready team. Now, he's not trying to get a bunch of Max Jones, Comtois, Steele, players that are just straight out of the draft or just, a year or two in the league. He wants more NHL ready type players, which is good because we've talked about that. We need that mix. So that part's a little good. But then the concerning part is when they talk to him about what's going on and if his phone's going off and all this other stuff, he says, quote, "It's really quiet." And they said that he mentions different things as far as obviously the pandemic. You and I have talked about that on the show, trying to trade players, especially between Canada and U.S. and dealing with all that, laws and all that stuff, which I don't even want to get into. That we could do a whole separate podcast on that. But there's that issue. Of course, the expansion draft coming up with Seattle. That's another thing that's hanging over people. And then the financial aspect too, with the cap, right? You're not getting this big increase or anything like that, so you got to deal with that as well. So I don't know what you think, Eddie, but I'm really not as excited for the trade deadline. I mean, we'll go into individual players and who we think could be traded or not. But overall, I think the Ducks will definitely try to do some things. But in the big scheme of things, like the whole league and the Ducks, I don't think this trade deadline's really going to be that exciting. If I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't see like fireworks. I just kind of, I don't know. That's just kind of the feeling I'm getting from reading this and some other articles and things that I've seen.
No, I don't think so either. I'm still waiting for Murray's his yearly annual trade. It usually happens November, December when the season starts. I know it's weird now because the season started later, but I'm still waiting for that trade. I'm still waiting for the Mackenzie Weegar guy to come from Florida over here. So I'm waiting for something as of that magnitude for him to make a trade prior to the deadline. But I'm not gonna I don't expect any blockbuster or bigger trades. It's going to be little small trades here and there, maybe future considerations, maybe picking up a guy that has a high cap hit right now that's on a 1-year deal that expires, in the off season, so another team can make a move, maybe something like that. Who knows? But I wouldn't be banking on this big trade deadline. We have to stop and think too. The expansion draft's coming, so if Murray wants to make a move and protect a player or to retain some salary for another player to send him to Seattle, that's always an option too. But I can't see him going crazy at the trade deadline at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, we'll talk about some of the names that came up. Obviously, Raquel's name is like the number one name that keeps coming up everywhere you turn. Raquel. So he's number 2 on the Athletic trade bait list. And then he's number 3 on TSN's list. And so then Pierre LeBrun talked about him and possibly going to Toronto. Rodin Amirov is one player he mentioned, and another asset. Amirov's a young dude, good speed, stick handling, solid shot. Kind of needs some work on his defensive game in some other areas, but that was one that they brought up. Another one that later came on was, and this one's kind of crazy, but a first-round pick, Tim Liljegren, Alex Kerfoot, and then the Ducks would retain $300,000 of Raquel's salary. Was another proposed one. So a lot of this stuff going on. And then you had Elliott Freeman weighing in too, which I don't know what's going on with that guy because he's like, oh, Calgary and Toronto and all these guys are, going to go for Raquel. And then he's like, oh, the price is too high. He's not going to get traded, which led to our tweet of, you're going to trade Raquel or you're not going to trade Raquel, and back and forth, right? That's why I ended up posting that because it's like, what the heck is going on with this? So, I look at those 2 trade ideas that they talked about in the Athletic. I think the first one is more realistic, trying to get If you get Amirov and then you get some other NHL type ready asset, I think that's more likely. The other one seems kind of far fetched because you're looking at first round pick, prospect, and a roster player. Yes, the Ducks would try to retain some salary, but I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. But it's interesting to read the comments because a lot of Leafs players kind of Leafs fans, they downgrade Raquel is like not being a top 6 forward in some of the comments I've seen and things like that. And I just laugh. I'm like, you guys don't really watch Raquel play, do you? He's the top 6 forward. So, you want to downgrade what you want to offer. I get that. But don't downgrade Raquel, okay? He's a pretty damn good player. So, I don't know. What do you think about these trade possibilities and everything with Raquel, since he's been obviously the biggest, topic or player that's been discussed with the Ducks in the last couple of weeks for being traded?
I don't know if the Ducks are going to want another Russian player. I mean, they already picked one in the draft. I don't think they're going to want another one. They've been kind of like anti-Russia for a while for some reason. But it's just, you know what? I do like Kerfoot. Yeah, I mentioned Kerfoot too. He was on the Avalanche. He's a really good player. He can solidify a third line, play on the penalty kill. I do like that, but I really can't see Raquel going. And if you were going to trade him, like we talked about last time, you should have traded him when he was on that point heater. You could have got a really overpayment return on that. I can't see it happening. Toronto, of course, their fans are nuts. They're crazy over there. I love it though. If you bring in Raquel, instantly it's gonna boost them up. And if you're gonna make a swap like that for Raquel with his potential being high, you're gonna have to trade someone bigger. You have to go bigger. Maybe a Marner type of player, a big package deal for that. I'm you know what? I'm so kind of like confused that a lot of fans didn't bring this up, and I know there's some crazy Ducks fans out there that brought this up already. But why not just trade Raquel and bring in Freddie Anderson back? I know that conversation came up somewhere. I'm glad it didn't blow up though, because I know some people are still pissed off about that trade that happened years ago. But it's hard for me to want to see Raquel leave too as a fan. He's like one of my top favorite players. I have his jersey, met him a few times, so I have that attachment to him. But as a business aspect of it, whatever makes the Ducks better than to go for it. But I think the more they wait and the more he goes on this pointless streak, his value decreases, and to get that overpayment for him is going to be a lot harder. So some of these are interesting deals and interesting things that have been popped up, but there's have to be some kind of tweaks to add to this to make it really that, I guess, watery. Like mouth-watering for the Ducks and for fans to like. I would like Wayne Simmons coming back in any trade to the Ducks, because I like the way he plays and I like his grit and physicality to the game. That'd be kind of fun to see him play for the Ducks.
Yeah, I'm really torn on this one. I think, like you said, on a personal level, I wouldn't want Raquel traded. But if the Ducks could get some kind of overpayment for him, then by all means go for it. But I just don't really see it happening right now. I think you're right. I think that momentum was kind of about a week ago or so. He could blow it up in the next couple weeks before the trade deadline and make it higher. But I'm kind of 50-50, maybe 40-60 no that he won't get traded. But he's the one that's out there and talked about the most. So those are kind of the latest things on Raquel. Another player's name that was mentioned in The Athletic was Josh Manson. He was listed at number 4 on their trade bait list. And, Manson, I don't think he will get moved. I think a big issue for him has been his health this season. He's been off and on the ice, injured. He finally came back, but then we've seen this where they've played him, but then had the 7 defensemen in those games against Colorado a little while back, and then they have this here with another 7 defenseman game. Something's going on with him. He's not 100%. You can tell, because why is Aikens trying to crutch him by playing 7 defensemen? So yes, he's the stay-at-home type defenseman, right-handed shot, big guy, a lot of appealing things that a lot of people talk about. But just the way that he is right now, I wouldn't even put him on the trade bait list, to be honest. I would take him off that list, or I'd have him towards the bottom. I just don't see him holding a lot of value. Maybe somebody out there will want to take a bite at him and go for it, but I don't know. I just don't see him really getting moved, Eddie.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to sell, especially with his frequent him being frequently injured. We haven't really seen him come back to full form and be that top four defenseman that he is. I just can't see him that going. And we need a player like Josh Manson on that back end, that physical player, that stay at home defenseman that can create plays too. At his peak, he's a really good defenseman. It's just something the Ducks can build off of, and someone they need. So unless someone really comes at them and throws them a huge tantalizing offer, I can't see him getting moved. And I think they should really think twice about moving a player like him, because if they move Manson, you really don't have that kind of grit that you need with that skill at on the blue line as your top four. You kind of lose that on that.
I agree, and I honestly think the Ducks should just try to rest him the rest of the season at this point. I mean, get him in there, maybe limit his minutes or rest him, because he keeps coming in and out. He's obviously not 100%. He's not playing terrible, but I would try to just minimize what's going on with him right now. I mean, if that's what it's going to take to get him a little bit better, or if you're going to try to trade him or whatnot, because putting him out there and then having to do 7 defensemen, that's just not helping anybody. If he can't go out there and play in a 6 defenseman role, then bench him, let him heal up, or you knock him down on his minutes. You got to do something, but I don't see him as being one that they are really big on, in that trade bait list. They also mentioned 3 other names in the Athletic. They talked about Heinen, Henrique, and Silverberg. And I forgot to mention, I did write an article about all this. It was to be traded or not to be traded article. So if you didn't see that one, go check it out. I really went into depth on this. But they talk about these 3 players. And along with Raquel, Heinen is the one I would really, really watch. Of course, we've heard all that stuff with Vancouver and Britannia and all that stuff that was talked about. But the biggest thing is you look at the games that he's played. The first 18 games this season, he played in 17 of them. The last 15, he only played in 6. So to me, the fact that his name's been thrown out there by the Athletic being traded to Vancouver, I don't know if that will happen. I hope not. I'm not a big Virtanen fan. But the fact that he's not been playing a lot, I mean, you have to wonder, is he in the Dallas Aikens or Bob Murray doghouse? What's going on? I mean, he's not getting a lot of ice time. He finally got in a couple games and scratched again. So I would take Raquel and Heinen right now. Those are kind of the ones that I would watch, Eddie.
Yeah, I can't see Heinen being a Duck after the trade deadline at all. And I don't know what happened when we brought him. I thought it was a good deal. I thought we were going to see him, be a better player and get to that point where he was at Boston when he just kind of slipped off over there. But he really hasn't seemed like they utilized him enough at all this season. So I don't know what's going on with that. Like you said, he may be in the doghouse. That happens a lot to players where they don't get that opportunity once they get into that doghouse. It's kind of hard to get out. But it's going to be interesting to see. And you know what? Honestly, I kind of want him to be traded. Like, let him get that opportunity somewhere else. Obviously, he's not getting it in Anaheim, which can use a player and use anyone to get any kind of spark. But him being scratched frequently as he is, this is kind of weird. So it'd be really interesting to see him being a Duck moving past the trade deadline. I don't see it happening at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wish they would play him more. But if they're not, you might as well trade him to a team where he's going to get some time to play, and then we get something in return. So I think that there's a good chance that he could be gone. Now, the other ones that they, of course, mentioned was Henrique and Silverberg. These ones, I just don't see them happening as much. I mean, yeah, it could happen, but if you look at both their contracts, they're both signed till 23-24 season. You have Henrique at 5.8 a year. You have Silverberg at 5.25 a year. Of course, we all know about Henrique. He got benched, then he got waived, and then a taxi squad, and now he's back, and now he's scoring goals, and he's tied with Comtois to lead on the team, getting his game back a little bit. But I just don't see it with these two. I really don't. And if I'm wrong and they do something, then if that's going to happen, they're going to have to compensate because they got these longer contracts and higher annual costs. So that's where I'm at with these two, Eddie.
Yeah, and if you trade Henrique, you're going to have to retain salary or you're going to have to give up something else. There's not going to be a team that's going to just take him with his contract as is unless you add something. So if you trade him at this point, you're going to be losing something. You're going to be losing a valuable second line center that's getting some that's been fired up since his wave. But no one's going to take that contract. And I talked about this before. I'm thinking if he's going to get traded, it's going to be in the offseason, maybe with the Seattle draft coming up. They can retain salary and trade him to Seattle in exchange for Seattle picking up XYZ player, just like the Clayton Stoner kind of thing. That's where I can see him being traded. I can't see him being traded this season or the deadline. Silverberg, I think Silverberg has a bigger chance of being traded than Henrique this season, but still, Silverberg's not playing to that form, to that deal he signed. So once again, you're not going to get that big of a return for a player like Silverberg without having to give up something, because I can't see getting that much of a return for Silverberg right now. Yes, he has potential. Yes, he could put the puck in the net and he could produce offensively, but he hasn't this season, especially on this struggling team where he can have more of the opportunity. He's one of the players that people look at to be that big points producer for the Ducks, and he's not doing that right now. I don't see these big moves happening. It's too many wheels turning for Murray in to handle, especially the trade deadline. So I think, it's definitely not going to happen. Heinen for sure, I think is going. Even Nick Deslauriers, I think some teams might call on him. They might want that grit, especially going into the playoffs. He's a possibility to be traded. I don't see it though, but I think Heinen and Deslauriers have more of a chance. Definitely have more of a chance of getting traded than Silverberg and Henrique at this point.
Yeah, and just real quick on Deslauriers, Pittsburgh Hockey Now was saying that the Penguins might be in on him for the grit. So, keep an eye on Deslauriers. I don't think that's as big of a one either, but his name has been thrown out there as well. And then I know you and I are saying no for sure.
Well, you might be happy with going to Pittsburgh. You might finally get a Pittsburgh jersey.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, that might work. And then, I don't know, the Anaheim Fight Club shirt, though, I'd have to kind of change the colors to gold and black instead of orange and black.
Oh, how dare
I know, I'd have to change it. Which, by the way, tpnhockey.com, you check it out for our shirts and whatnot. But moving along with some of the other names out there, this other one was interesting. I don't know what's going on with Elliott Freeman. I don't know if he's just trying to catch headlines lately or whatever, but he also mentioned Troy Terry and saying something about how he might want out and all this stuff. But then I was cracking up because Eric Stevens had an article literally the next day saying that that wasn't the case. So I don't think Terry's going to get moved based upon that. For me, I trust Eric Stevens over Elliott Freeman, at least when it comes to Ducks stuff. Don't get me wrong. Elliott Freeman's, one of the big names, and he covers the league and everything. But when it comes to Duck stuff, I usually trust Eric, and I've talked to him a little bit this season, kind of offline about certain things too, and he's refuted certain things that have been thrown out there here and there, and this was one of them that he did in an article. So I don't see Terry going anywhere. They mentioned Max Jones was a no-go. I threw some other names in the article. You look, Comtois, Steele, Mahura, all these kind of players, things like that. I'm not really going to go into it too much, other than if the Ducks do trade one of these guys, they better get a damn well good return. They better get a really high draft pick or someone that's ready to go and play, because if they're just going to swap out similar type players, I just think that's a waste of time, Eddie.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you. And a big shout out to Eric Stevens. I love his work. I'm a fan of his, and he's a top-notch guy, a great writer. He puts out so much good information. But, yeah, the Ducks have to make, I guess, not make trades and make trades, but they have to make trades that are going to really put them to have a successful future. You can't give up on guys early. You can't do that right now. We have to make smart decisions, and I really hope, honestly, I hope the Ducks don't make any trades at all. I don't trust Murray at this point making trades. For some, in my back of my mind, hoping that he gets relieved of his duties or he resigns on his own. We bring a new GM and they can build off that new GM's plan and start making those trades. I just don't want him to kind of poke too many holes in the boat and we're sunk to the ground before we can actually do something. Yes, we're rebuilding, but I don't think we're in a bad situation like Detroit or Ottawa or Buffalo. I don't know what's going on in Buffalo. They have superstar players and they still suck. I guess that's even bad for them, but I don't know. I don't have faith in Murray at all to do anything. That's why if the Ducks don't make a trade, don't make anything big splashes, with the next coming few months, I wouldn't be upset about that. I want a new GM, and I want that new GM to build the team, not Murray's team.
Yeah, and we'll go into that in just a second because I got a couple more players just to cover, which these names came up again last game in the broadcast on NBC with the Ducks against the Wild. They mentioned Getzlaf and Gibson again, and I was just like, why are you guys even talking about these players? And they basically said what we already said. Like, they talked about Getzlaf, and they said, yeah, it's up to him. Well, duh, he has a no movement clause. We already talked about that. And Murray's already come out and said that, he has too much respect for Getzlaf to, say, hey, dude, you want to get traded? So, I don't know why they brought that up during the game. They brought up Gibson again, too, which I'm tired of that. I'm not really going to go into that. We already know that Buffalo, like you talked about, who's been struggling. You want to talk about a team doing poorly, right? The Ducks are doing bad, but Buffalo is doing really bad. 14 losses, so hey, not as bad as the Ducks, right? But their name was mentioned. Gibson's not going anywhere. Plus, Gibson's now injured too. So that even makes his value go even down. He's on the damn IR. So forget that nonsense. And then Miller's playing like crap, unfortunately, lately. I feel bad for him. I don't think it's all on him, but he's not been quite playing as well. And we've already mentioned that issue. So I just throw those out there, Eddie. I don't know if you want to throw anything in there, but Getzlaf, Gibson, and Miller, I put as highly doubtful that they get traded this season.
I don't think NBC talked about Getzlaf being one of those players that be traded. They talked about the unknown player that I don't know that Getzlaf player that they were talking about. I keep saying, you know what, that irritates me. I don't know. I'm just annoyed sometimes, but I don't know why NBC always says Getzlaf.
Right.
They've been saying that for it's it's Getzlaf. Why do you keep saying it that way? I don't know. Someone needs to write a letter. All fans that listen to this, write a letter to NBC correcting their name. If not, I'm going to lose my mind, especially in a season like this where we're all having to watch the Ducks play extremely poorly. At least get the damn name right. But I think you're right. These three players, I don't think they're going to go. And I think if any of them were going to go, John Gibson would get the most news and big breaking news or most attention, I should say, not news. But yeah, these three players aren't going anywhere, so don't count on them leaving. I don't think Getzlaf's going to request to be traded to a Stanley Cup team. I don't think Miller's going to request it, and he hasn't been playing well either, so his value might not be that great for a team to want to pick up. So I think these three players are safe to say they're staying.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, Akins and Murray, I really don't think they're going anywhere either. And I know you guys are going to throw stuff at your phone or your computer or whatever you're listening to on right now because you're like, say what? These guys need to go and yada, yada. We've already beat a dead horse on that. I don't want to dwell on that, but I will give you a little bit more info on what's going on. LeBrun talked about this again with Murray, and Murray was talking about bringing in another veteran coaching presence since Sutter left for Calgary. So I thought that was interesting. So that basically tells you right there that he has no desire to get rid of Dallas Akins, which I told you I had mixed feelings on because my issue is you remove him and Murray's still there. That's not good enough for me. If you're going to remove Akins, you got to remove Murray. That's what I talked about before on the last show if you didn't hear it. So it sounds like he's not going anywhere because he wants to bring in somebody to help him, not replace him. And he said he was going to look into that during the offseason. So it doesn't look like much is going to change there, Eddie. I mean, unless the Ducks go on a 14-game losing streak like Buffalo, I don't see anything really happening with either one of these guys.
Yeah, I'm calling this right now. Mike Babcock back to the Ducks. He's coming back. He'll be that advisor, calling it now. I think he's coaching college, assisting coaching a college team right now to get his credibility back up. But I'm calling it right now. He'll be back to the Ducks. So if that ever happens, and this is a source from Trust Me, Bro.
Oh.
So just not official. Just before anyone starts saying, DucksNPucks said this, they have a source. No, my source is myself. Me looking in the mirror and saying, Trust me, bro. But yeah, I don't know. This frustrates me. And yes, I know you guys are frustrated too. I'm frustrated as well. And I always... Yeah, like I said, I don't want to wish someone get fired from their job, but in this situation where I'm sure Murray won't have a problem financially bouncing back from his termination, and I'm sure he would get another chance elsewhere with another team. But at this point, we need change. We need something. There's only so much you can blame on the players, on the system, excuses, all your fluffy words that you use. I think your PR department's ran out of that. that's gone. Something needs to happen, and it's, unfortunately, I think Akins will go before Murray does, but it's just people that want both of them gone. It's not going to happen. So I think we have a better chance of winning the lottery this year than seeing any of them go. Unfortunately, if you do win the lottery, you guys are awesome. Remember, I wear a size large in jerseys.
I think we should start the hashtag Trust Me, Bro. That's a good one. You know,
I know.
I think that's a good one. We should start because
Hey, a T-shirt source. Trust me, bro.
we should throw that one out there, man. So when anybody's telling us, because I get sent some wild stuff, and I crack up. I'm not going to mention names or websites, but. Yeah. Anyways, so some of the fan questions, you guys, Instagram, you guys blew us up, but you asked a lot about this.
As always,
huh?
Mike, too. I want to shout out the people on Instagram. You guys are freaking nuts, and I love you. You guys just throw us questions. You give us things to talk about. You give us ideas for new articles to write. You guys are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. You guys make this fun. I post a thing asking for questions. I check back on it. I just like blown up. I'm like, holy crap. It's like a little overwhelming, but I love it. It's just keep doing what you're doing, guys. And unfortunately, with time, we can't get to all of them, but we'll try as hard as we can. But we both really appreciate all that feedback, those questions, especially in a season like this. So thank you for that, and keep coming. Keep those questions coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we had. We kind of answered some already. We had Mighty Since 93 and that.1.grimace. They asked about Akins being fired. We said it's at least not happening now, but maybe later. And as you said, he would be first before the GM. We had Blazer 91606 says, we should start over basically with a new GM. You and I have talked about that on several shows. Yes, absolutely. We're like, let's get this thing going, and that's what would need to be done. But will it be done? Not at least not anytime soon. We're both afraid that their contracts might run out, and then that's when a change would happen. These other questions, though, I thought were pretty interesting. We had Angel_Intruder. He talks about, should Selanne come and coach the Ducks instead of Akins? And my answer is yes. But, talking to him before, because we've had him on the podcast, I can't remember when we last had him, but when I talked to him about this, I think he's enjoying life too much. I would want him to go in there and do that. It'd be awesome. But I think he's just having too much fun right now, Eddie.
Oh, yeah. And I believe he said that when he was on the show, that being a coach is kind of like being a player. You put that much time, if not more, into the team. And he wasn't ready at that point in his life to do that. But yeah, you can follow him on Instagram. He's enjoying his life, and it's fun. It's really fun to see. He's always smiling, laughing, golfing, showing his kids off, his daughter and her tennis skills, which tennis I think is one of the hardest sports in the world. I had to play it in PE when I was in junior high, and it was hard. I got hit. I was not happy. That sport looks intense though, but oh yeah, should he become? You know what? I don't know. I'm mixed about this. Like in the future, I don't know if I want him to become a Ducks head coach. It takes a lot out of people. I love Selanne. If he doesn't do well, people are gonna start taking jabs at him. Then I'm gonna start fighting the Anaheim fan base for attacking Selanne. I don't want to end up getting kicked out of Honda Center, and there goes. I think a limited part-time role that he wants to do, coaching. Maybe developmental players, being one of those, home coaches where you go and help out with that kind of atmosphere. I think that would work for him, and it's not overwhelming for him. He's still enjoying the life that he deserves to enjoy. Maybe he opens up a Selanne bar, which I'd be there 24 hours and 24 hours 7 days a week. That'd be pretty cool. He's doing great with his restaurant, which I went there a few weeks ago. Fortunately, he wasn't there, but no, I guess my answer would be no. I don't think he should be the coach. I mean, it would be cool to see, but at this point, no. And maybe in the future, no either, because I don't want, like I said, I just don't want it to turn out bad. And we had that negative view of Selanne. Selanne is viewed as, I want to say, like our god in Anaheim. That's just our player, and we have so many great memories, and we wouldn't want him to turn into like a bad coach like Wayne Gretzky was with the Arizona Coyotes, or I'm sorry, the Phoenix Coyotes at that time.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. That's a good point that you talked about that. And then we had Graykin13. He asked about Teemu having any interest, even being in any kind of role behind the bench. And I think that's the only thing, as you mentioned, as if maybe like a Scott Niedermayer type thing where when the Ducks are in town, he helps out, things like that. I don't see him in any kind of full-time role. And I'm with you. I don't want him to be in any full-time role because I would just be afraid of, something happening. It didn't work out. And, he went out on such a high note, and, I don't want anything to switch that or change that. So I'm with you on that one. We're getting towards wrapping this up. There is some more injury news. I talked about some of it in the show about Gibson being out. We know that Milano is also out on the IR. And then we talked about Lindholm, you mentioned. He's out with the wrist thing. He was now added to the LTIR. And then Carter Rowney, he had knee surgery, and he's out, and he's on the LTIR. So had all that go on. And then we got hit with COVID protocol stuff, which the Ducks had been very, very good at dealing with this throughout the season. And now we found out that Heinen, Hutton, Larson, and Stolars all are in that protocol. And I know some of you were asking questions about, like, what does that mean? It could mean a couple things. So it could mean that somebody tested positive. It can mean that they were around somebody that tested positive. And the players may or may not be in a quarantine type status. So those are some things that are kind of going on with that. But it just adds to it, Eddie, right? It's like when it rains, it pours. We have guys going out on regular IR, long-term injury IR. We had no COVID stuff. Now the Ducks eventually got hit with it. We're going to blame your favorite team, the Minnesota Wild, for this, right? So that's what's going on. At least they're saying the Ducks are still going to play that other game against Minnesota. So we're recording this before that second game. So it hopefully will still go. But God, just what a cluster, Eddie.
It's funny you bring Minnesota Wild up into this because they had issues when they played the Colorado Avalanche several weeks ago where they had to cancel those games or postpone them because of COVID-19 protocols because of the Minnesota Wild. So it's just funny that this happens again. And you know what? Just to throw a little joke in it, and maybe it's not the right thing to joke about COVID or anything, but I don't know. I'm going to throw a joke because that's me. Heinen was probably going to be a healthy scratch anyway, so he wasn't going to play. So that's kind of not really kind of a big shocker, but I don't know. Hopefully, it's just something that they were just in contact with. They don't get anything, nothing serious, and their health is okay. It could be something where they went to eat somewhere, ordered food. I know some restaurants will have you put your email. So if anyone gets like COVID-19 within that restaurant, they will. I guess the CDC will send you an email saying that you might have been exposed to get tested. Also, if they're going to any other public places. I went to a high school football game this weekend, and they had me put my email information in there just in case anyone in that area was positive for COVID-19. Sending an email advising you of that. So it could be one of those things too. They went out to eat, or it could be anything. The players hanging out after. I don't know, but I hope they're all okay and they just get back to it. But like you said, when it rains, it pours. Hopefully, just gives an opportunity to some of the guys from the taxi squad that have been like there, maybe a few more calls from the goals to see what other players have to offer and see what we can be looking forward to in the future.
I agree. I mean, the best thing is hopefully they're all fine and nobody has any long-term effects or anything like that. So, you'll get some updates, obviously, as that information comes out. We did do another podcast poll question. And this one was about Drysdale because obviously the Drysdale era has begun. But as we talk about, like with a question mark, so Zegras has been up past his 7-game mark. The first year of his ELC was burnt. So the question is, should Drysdale stay up or not? And threw that question out there on Facebook. I was a little surprised, but a majority of you said no. You said that Drysdale should go back down. Kind of interesting. A couple of you were talking about, keep him up for the rest of the season. It's not going to hurt anything. That was Tony Freed said that having him play now will only help him grow as a player. But then we've had other people like Jan that says, I don't think it's worth it to burn the first year. Let him play the minimum games allowed, then send him back. The other part of this equation, too, is we don't know what's going on with the OHL. So sending him down right now would be to the Gulls. Because of the rules with the OHL, he would go over there instead. I don't know if that would sway some people's opinions on this or not, but I was surprised. And Eddie and I disagree on this. I'm more of the who cares, throw everything out the window, let him play, just do it. Give Zegras and Drysdale the puck as much as you can the rest of the season, and just do it. That's kind of my take on it. like we said, you can't really look at wins or losses. Obviously, we're not even going to mention the word playoffs. Hello, that's not going to happen. So, as we talked about in the beginning of the season, they had a slim chance. Now the chance is completely zero. So, but Eddie, you think that they should maybe let him play a couple games and then send him back down and not burn the first year? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, send him down. The only way I would want him to stay up if it's a possibility or if the junior hockey gets figure out what they're gonna do and he has to get sent down to junior, then I'd be like, okay, well bring him up because obviously I think he's gonna be way too good for the junior to play in the junior league and it doesn't really gonna help his development. He's already where he belongs in the professional environment. If there's some way they can have these kind of players stay with their AHL professional teams, that'd be great. The experience he can learn, the development would be good. But I just don't think, why waste a year on his entry-level contract when we see this player that we can build off of and we can have that extra year on him. He does play well. He belongs in NHL. I think is no problem, but I think the best bet to do is send him back down. And not because anything he's done wrong or because of his play. It's just there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in Anaheim first. They don't know. It seems like at times they don't know what they're doing. Very, very questionable calls by the head coach. And it seems at times he doesn't really put them in those high stress situations. It kind of she shields them and handcuffs them where they can't really play to their full potential. Him with the goals, he's going to be playing in those high stress, high emergency situations when they need a goal or they need someone they can rely on. He can be that shoulder to lean on, and he can learn to take that responsibility and to keep that calm demeanor under pressure. I just don't think it's right to bring these players up just to shield them and not let them really blossom and fly when you're just holding them up all the time. Yeah, it suck if he gets sent down and people are gonna get mad, but I think it's the right thing to do to help his development. And also too, I just don't want him to get used to these losing ways and to just be content with losing, because no matter who you are, if you're stuck in an environment for long enough, you just kind of just generalize yourself in that environment, and I don't want that to happen with him. He's a really special player, and like I said, he's going to be one of those players, him and Zegras, that you can build from. You can get their identity, and you can see it molding. You can build off of what they have. You have a future superstar player in Zegras. You have a future star, hopefully superstar defenseman in Drysdale. I don't want to see anything that can hinder that and let these players get used to losing and the crap show that's happening in Anaheim. And I even said the same thing about Zegras. Does Zegras deserve to be sent down to San Diego for his play? Absolutely not. He belongs in the NHL. But I want him to play huge minutes. I want him to be that leader on the team. Throw that letter on his chest at that young age in San Diego. All those stressful and high situations, he needs to be in. Get those minutes each and every night to help his development. So that's the reason why I'm saying to send him down, and not from his play or Zegras' play at all, because I think they're phenomenal players. And I think they're going to develop nicely and be superstar and a star in the league. But as of right now and what's going on and all the weird clownness in Anaheim, I don't want to see them put through that.
You do make some good points there. I'm with you, and the fact is I want them up and I want them to play, but I'm with you in the sense that I don't want them to be held back, and that's what I got really irritated at the end of that Minnesota game. You already saw them playing together in the Arizona game, those two. Well, you have an opportunity to tie the game at the end here, and you don't put them out there. I mean, it's like, really? So I want them up. I want them to gain the experience, but I'm with you. I don't want them to be limited, especially in key situations where you want these guys to go out and perform and contribute. Then the other part of it that I thought you made that was interesting is about that losing mentality. I didn't really think about that. I don't care about wins or losses. I mean, and I know it's tough because we all want them to win. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather them win than lose. I mean, what I'm saying that is because I'm not getting overly emotional about wins or losses, right? Because they're not going to be a playoff team. However, having a mindset of just it's okay to lose is not good either, right? So it's kind of like we expect them to lose right now, the way that things have been going. But you don't want to have that mindset when you go out there on the ice that, okay, we're not doing well this year, we're just going to lose or win, whatever we're going to do the rest of the season. You want to be competitive and play well. So that's something that's kind of interesting, because if they're out there, and I'm not saying that that's the mentality of the team, but if that was a mentality that started to develop, that would definitely not be good for this team, Eddie.
Oh no, you'll end up like Buffalo,
Right.
losing 14 in a row. It's just, and you know what? What's weird about Buffalo? They have superstar players. They have Eichel, coach and GM Eichel over there. He besides him crying all the time and his attitude, he's a phenomenal player. They have Taylor Hall, a former Hart Trophy winner. They have really good. I don't know what's going on over there. Something in the water. I'm glad we're not. I guess I'm glad we're in this little COVID kind of league now, because I wouldn't want the Ducks to drink any of the water that Buffalo's drinking and be that team. So I guess we can always look at that. And yeah, and like you said too, we watch these games, like we know what's going to happen. I think I've called it too prior to the season starting, that the Ducks weren't a playoff team, and if they we had some hopes of them possibly squeaking in the playoffs, getting in there, but it wasn't really going to be worth it. But I don't know. We have to wait and see. I just lost my train of thought too, but it's oh, what were you talking about again, Mike? I just really lost my train of thought thinking about this. Oh yeah, I wanted to say too. There's some of these games where I watch and I kind of want the Ducks to lose, because I'm hoping that Murray gets fired over it and we can just start something new. But then when they lose, I'm over here pouty and pissed off about it. So it's like I expect the loss, and I sometimes want them to lose, but when they do lose, I'm over here getting pissed off about it too. So it's just kind of one of those things where I'm never going to be happy, I guess, until Murray's gone.
I think that's a dilemma that a lot of people have out there, because if you're seeing them lose, we're going into a situation where they can have a higher draft pick, but then you're losing and Murray and Akins are still there. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, unfortunately. So that's where we're at. I'm just hoping that we can win some games here and get in the flow, get some of these lines together, get some chemistry going the rest of the season. And we'll just take it from there. The season's not that far off from being done for the Ducks. We got about another 5 or 6 weeks, and I can't believe it. It's with the shortened season, it's coming up quick. And then we'll be talking about the draft here pretty soon, which we got some league news on that, Eddie. And finally, we had a podcast where we kind of went off on the draft lottery this last time, and the league just approved some changes, and some good changes. So they made 3 things that are going to happen. 1 will be this year, and then 2 in the following year. But I like what they're doing here. They're dropping the picks down from 3 to 2. So if you have the worst placed team, you can't drop to 4th like Detroit did. You can only drop to 3rd, and they're starting that right away. So I really like that one, Eddie. Then, of course, they're limiting teams where you can't win more than twice in 5 years. Another thing that's good. And then they're not allowing teams to jump more than 10 spots. So there'll be 11 teams instead of 16 that can win the top spot. And those last 2 are coming in 2022. But I'm glad they're making these changes, so we don't have all this craziness that happened this last time around that you and I basically went off on that podcast. But at least some good stuff here that the league is finally like, okay, we got to fix this, and here we go.
Yeah, and me, I hate change. I'm a creature of habit. Like I've been working on that more in my personal life, where I can accept change and willing to go out there and do that change. And I've been working on that a lot, because I hate it. Like I like to do. I like routines, but I know routines now just kind of are bad. I think a lot of that attributes to me being in the military, where everything's a big routine. But I love all these changes. I think it's great. I don't think it's fair for a team like Detroit, even though screw them because they're the Red Wings. But it wasn't fair how they were that bad of a team and they got the 4th overall pick. It's just it's not fair at all. And then you have a team like the Rangers, the last draft, that weren't even out of the bubble, that that potentially could have won the cup or something. Or even Edmonton. Let's go back to Edmonton winning all those lotteries, and then that's just crazy. All the number 1 drafts they got, and they're still that bad of a team. Yeah, they caught fire recently, and they have McDavid. Just think if McDavid was on a different team, that team would probably win the cup because of him. He's a phenomenal player, and yeah, it's Edmonton. We as Ducks fans, we don't really like Edmonton, but you have to respect the hell out of Connor McDavid being a hockey fan. But I'm happy with these changes. It's going to be better for teams to be a little more fair. You don't want to see the same team keep getting the same draft picks. Unless it was the Ducks getting it, then that's okay. But other teams getting it, that's not okay. But now I would hate to be the Ducks. Who knows? Maybe they might be dead last this season. Imagine if they were poised to get their 1st overall pick and they dropped down to 4. That would just be a riot in Anaheim. It'd be bad. But yeah, these are kind of league changes that I'm happy to see, and I'm glad the league finally stepped in and did something about that to make this draft a little more fair. Now, the only thing I want them to change is I want to see the whole process from start to finish, even though, like, just keep it in the background so fans can see, because that will kind of limit the discussion about fraud and the league trying to favor some other teams other than others. So I want to see that, but is that going to happen? No, but I'll take all the changes right now for the lottery changes.
Yeah, I'm glad that they finally looked at this and addressed some of it, because it was just getting a little bit too out of control. So look for that. Changes coming up. That's going to do it for our show. We have a couple sponsors to mention real quick. Before we're done, don't forget manscaped.com. Check them out. You can get a 20% discount with DucksNPucks as your code or discount word there. And I highly recommend it. I think that the best thing, Eddie and I, we talk about their little spiel and everything. I crack up about, I never really thought about this, but if you're a guy and you're shaving your face and then you're shaving your groin and then back to your face, that's just wrong. So it's good to have your own trimmer for down there and then a separate one for your face, Eddie. I don't know if you have any funniness that you want to add to it, but that's what I look at when I talk about Manscaped. I love their product. And yes, have two razors, please. Have a regular one for your face and another one for your groin.
Yeah, you know what, too? Because I shave my armpits. I know TMI, but I used their shaver they sent me with the little light. I like the LED light for some reason. I shut the light in the restroom and act like I'm a kid sometimes and play like the light. I'm kind of weird, but yeah, I shaved my armpits, and before I shaved them with the razor, until I sliced myself one time, and just slicing yourself in the armpit is hell, and it hurts really, really bad. And I don't suggest anyone to do that. It hurt so bad I had to run upstairs and take some vodka swigs. This was me when I was drinking still, not my little temporary pause in drinking. But yeah, I like it. And I really like their boxers. Their boxers, like I said, their boxers are the most comfortable boxers I've ever had in my life. I'm going to order some more. That's how comfortable they are. If they want to send me some for free, that'd be cool. But I'm still going to order them because they're really comfortable. I like them. I definitely suggest you try them out, especially you guys are guys, or I know girls too. Listen to the podcast. You can try them out. Shave your arms. I shave everything, like all my hair. I don't like hair except on my face or on my eyebrows and my head. That's it. So that comes in handy. The razor gets kind of old, and that's gross. If you're one of those people that use your razor for other than your face, and then you use it in your private areas and your face again. That's kind of weird, to each his own, but hey, whatever works for you.
And another sponsor, too, to check out for basically supplements and whatnot and energy is Bucked Up. You can go to buckedup.com/shop and enter in that code DucksNPucks with 93 at the end. The number's 93. You can get 20% off there, so check them out as well. And check out, we have our Zegras shirt. We still have our Delorier shirt. Check out tpnhockey.com for our store and what to check out there. And lastly, don't forget we have a contest giveaway courtesy of Mercury Insurance. They gave us an autographed Getzlaf jersey and Lindholm puck. And just go back to the last show, listen to the word that we gave away at the end of that show. And the word for this show is fly, F-L-Y. And then listen to the next show, put the words together for that phrase, and then we'll give you more instructions at that time, and then hopefully you can win one of those two items. Make sure to also subscribe on Podomatic or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we'll be back in a week or two. Let's go Ducks!